guys, my name is Zeke.
And my name is JJ.
And this is the Yute Room Podcast, conversations with Black youth for Black youth. And we're back at it again with episode 2, talking about emotions. And before we jump straight into things, we have a special guest who we would like to introduce themselves. So Rick, let the people know what you do, who you are, what you're all about, man.
Yes. Thank you for having me, guys. So my name is Rick. I'm a psychotherapist within the city of Toronto, and I've been a therapist for about 5 years now. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. But I'm definitely happy to be a part of today's episode.
And we're glad to have you. You said 5 years. That's a pretty long time, honestly speaking.
Yeah, 2019. So actually when I was in school, I was pretty much having my placement at a mental health agency, and they pretty much wanted me to work with them right away. So once I graduated that same year, I started working that same year once I graduated from school. So since 2019, I've been working as a therapist. Yeah, so working with families, youth within the city, and it's pretty diverse. So whether it's racialized families, from all types of different diverse backgrounds, disabilities, to us LGBTQ community, younger youth to, adults, families. So it's a pretty broad spectrum for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So I bet you have a lot of experience and stories to share with us, with half a decade of experience. So before we jump straight into things, we got a little icebreaker question for everyone here. So what did you guys do this week for your mental health?
I guess I'm going first.
I guess you're going first. You're on the hot seat.
It's a great question. I would say for me, because I do work in the mental health field, there isn't one particular thing that I do. It's a combination of a couple of things that I do that usually helps with my mental health, at least. One is simply talking to people. So for example, when I finish a session, just having conversations with folks, so what helps with that is it just gets my mind off of the session, work, so whether it's talking to friends, family, so just communicating with people. And also just spending time with my nephew. He's only 12 months. So whenever I come home, just hanging out with him. So I would say those two things definitely help with my mental health. Just decompress, not think about work. It's a nice stress reliever for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and it's such a simple answer. Talking to people. Sometimes we neglect, the power of conversation and just having and spending time with people around us. How about you, JJ?
For me, I know last week, for those who listened in, I said I played basketball a lot. It's kind of migrated to working out, so I've been in the gym. It's summertime, so you gotta get swole.
I hear that. Trying to fill out the t-shirt, eh?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Bro, it's a struggle. I'll say the same thing, for myself. One thing I do is go to the gym. I try to go first thing in the morning before it gets busy. And it just keeps me busy, I just have fun in the gym. Not really, trying to achieve anything per se. I'm just trying to, just get stronger, stay healthy. And one other thing I could say this week that I did for my mental health, I just listened to music and I closed my eyes and laid in my bed. I did that 5 times this week.
Nice.
I have my own listening party. I dedicate myself to doing that because it's just something I like to do. And it helps me decompress, as you were saying before, and it helps me focus. Yeah, so with that being said, let's just jump straight into things. So today we're talking about emotions. First and foremost, Rick, I'm gonna pose this question to you. What would you say an emotion is? Or what is an emotion?
I would say for me, the way I would describe it is it's pretty much a part of our makeup, biological makeup as human beings. It's how we, survive pretty much in the world. So I'd say it's part of our mental state. So it's how we react to things, how we make decisions, how we think, make reason to things, think logically. And so, yeah, so I would say that's how I would define emotions. And in a way too, our emotions also, because it's so connected to our physical health also, because sometimes we don't realize that our emotional health is also connected to our physical health. So when your emotional health is well, for the most part, usually your physical health is also well. So yeah, so I would say that's how I would define emotion.
So just a question. So
Yes.
I think growing up, I've always been told not to, when I'm mad at someone or at something, not to react in that moment, because that probably isn't really what I want to say and I haven't really thought it through.
Right.
That's true.
Do you know if there's a science behind that, or is it just kind of just in the moment you're mad, so you're just going to say the first thing that comes to your mind regardless of how it may make people feel?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely connected to like for example, in the mental health field, there's this phrase called the hyper arousal state. So pretty much it's called the window of tolerance. So basically, and you two have probably heard these three words together, but fight, flight, and freeze.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much connected to us. It's in our brain. So for example, whenever you're angry and upset, at that moment, your natural reaction, for the most part, would either to be fight, or for some people they freeze. So they shut down, or they, I would say, like walk away, flight, leave the situation. But it's also connected to our survival instincts as human beings, right? How we survive. But anger is definitely an interesting emotion, just because it's one of those emotions where, for the most part, the reason / need behind it is you want to be heard, you want to be seen. However, when you don't feel heard or seen, for the most part, you're going to, lash out. So that can be in a verbal way or in a physical way. And of course, those options are never healthy, of course. And I believe during the interview, we'll talk about some, different ways that folks could manage / maintain their anger whenever it comes up.
Yeah, for sure. And based off JJ's question and your answer, you can see that our feelings have so much impact and influence on us as humans. And I think you even mentioned that feelings are necessary for survival, right? We can't really live without them. And I really liked what you talked about, that threshold of tolerance. Just it goes back to our humanity. We're human, there's only so much we can take before we break. So with all that being said, and knowing that our feelings have so much influence on who we are, my next question is, are emotions inherently good or bad?
I remember seeing that question when you shared it. I would say they're good because, again, they're part of our biology, right? It's how we communicate with one another, engage, interact, how we survive. So it's definitely good. And studies have also shown too that when you hold your emotions in, especially for a very, very long time, it could lead to physical complications to your health. And I know, especially within males, for example, there's a mental health crisis when it comes to suicide, it being a huge mental health issue within men, right? And a big part of that is being taught that, you know, you have to hold your emotions in, don't talk about it. And again, that would lead to, you know, physical complications, mental stress, and to the point where unfortunately people, or I should say men, do commit suicide due to not feeling heard and seen, right? So there's definitely, so I would say it's definitely good to express. And of course, there's healthy ways in expressing your emotions.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
But I would say, yeah, it's definitely inherently good, I would say.
When it comes to negative emotions, obviously one coping way is, if you do have a negative thought, to kind of take your time, process it before you kind of explode or verbalize what you really want to say. Are there studies found that there are other coping ways other than kind of just taking your time and rethinking your idea? Or rethinking your negative thought before you verbally say it?
So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking, are there studies around alternative thinking if ever a strong emotion comes up?
Yes.
Yeah. So for example, within therapy, there's a modality that I sometimes use with clients called CBT. So it stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. And in essence, the main objective behind it is to basically tell yourself, especially in those moments, all right, the way I'm thinking, is it helpful or is it not helpful? And what are some alternative thoughts that I can have in this moment that would be helpful in this situation? And there has been studies that have shown that whenever we do that, especially when we're alone by ourselves, taking space, you're able to realize at times in that moment that, oh, okay, you know what, I could have done this differently or that differently. So with that, you're more so using the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, just trying to think logically, especially in that moment when you're, again, it's easier to do that when you're all calm and collected in that moment. But there has been studies that have shown that when you shift the way you're thinking, it definitely benefits you in the long run. There's still practice that, of course, needs to be involved, but once you're able to do that, it definitely helps for sure.
Yeah, it's honestly like a great answer as well, because like we need to know and we need to learn how to like process our emotions, right? Just as growing people who want to be functional in society and, you know, one day be successful, right? You need to be in control of your thoughts. You need to be in control of, you know, what you feel and what it makes you do. But looking at society today, there's a lot of things going around saying, oh, men cannot be emotional. There's lots of new trends going on talking about the stoic man. As a man, you have to be hard. As a man, you have to be tough. Even when you bleed, you can't cry, right? And do you think that there is space in today's society for men to be emotional? And if there isn't space, what are the consequences of that? Because you talked about how our feelings are so strong that it can influence our physical health as well, right? And I'm a kinesiology and health science major, so I learn about the body and the body under stress. So I can only imagine, like, you know, the consequences of always being angry, the consequences of always being sad, the consequences of always being anxious. So so just to sum everything up, do you think there's space for men to be emotional, especially our young Black men, in today's society? And if not, what are the consequences of that?
It's a very good question. I would say they're, in a public sense, in my opinion, no. Just because, from what I've at least seen, especially within social media, the internet, whenever a male or a man does express their emotions, unfortunately, they're seen/deemed as weak, not a man. So that definitely becomes a challenge when it comes to feeling safe enough to express how you're truly feeling. Even though things are, slightly changing, when it comes to having a space that you can express your emotions. And I'm just thinking about, a place like therapy, for example, right? Of course, you can, express your emotions. And I've also even seen YouTube shows where there are spaces where men are sharing. So there are niches, pockets here and there. But I would say in a broader general sense, it's still a work in progress as far as society accepting that, it's okay for a man to show emotion and express how he's feeling, no matter how honest and vulnerable he is. But I also just think it also just speaks to how comfortable or how uncomfortable people are in seeing people express their emotions, because it pretty much shows a reflection of who they are and what they've needed to work on for themselves, right? Especially when it comes to expressing your emotions, because it's a very taboo subject. I mean, mental health in general is such a taboo subject, right? But I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely did. Just going off of what you said, obviously we live in a world where social media is a very big thing. People have a lot of comments to say online. No matter what you post, no matter how you feel, someone's gonna say something negative. Would I just, off of both of your two opinion, would you say it is okay to express how you're feeling emotionally online?
Ooh. Rick, I'm gonna throw that to you. I'm gonna answer afterwards. I'll think about this one.
So your question is it good to express your emotions online?
Like for the viewers listening, like, should they feel comfortable expressing their emotions online? Like, should they feel safe in doing so?
Safe.
Social media is tricky because on one end you could be expressing yourself to where someone can relate and understand, and they may have had a shared experience in you expressing. But on the other end, of course, we know social media can be very, very cruel and mean, to where it can also impact and hurt your mental health. I would say if you've done some work with your mental health, and what I mean by work is, for example, knowing how to, if you're at a place where you know how to regulate your emotions, especially in moments when you are hyper aroused, so really upset or really, really sad, then I would say, for sure, express your emotions, because you're at a place where you know how to, regulate, you're pretty self-aware. But I would say if you're still working on it, still learning, it's still a struggle, I would say social media may not be the best first route, at least initially, until you've done some work around how to learn how to manage your emotions.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, because from what I've seen, people who are angry or who are sad who jump on social media, it's always unfiltered, it's always unprocessed words, unprocessed emotions, often slander that often gets them in trouble. And people eat that up. People love to see that, right? Which is kind of crazy. How we like to see each other, I guess, break down and we laugh at it, right? And it just goes to show how I believe like online spaces, like especially Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, I wouldn't classify those as safe spaces. Hypothetically, let's just say the camera was off and it's just the four of us here in this room, right? and one of us is having a bad day, more than likely I'd be able to say, oh, this is how I'm feeling. Oh, I missed the subway. This person was screaming at me at the bus station. This is how it made me feel, right? But if the camera was on, more likely I'd try to save face. I try to act like, this doesn't affect me. I try to pretend like I'm all right? And It just goes to show how in front of people sometimes we won't even be able to say what we actually want to say, right? So there's also two extremes. There's the people who will go on social media and feel free to say exactly how they're feeling in the moment without thinking of the consequences. And you also have people who don't feel safe sharing their thoughts and their vulnerable experiences on social media simply because you don't know what's gonna happen. And as Rick, you mentioned, like anything can happen online. The same experience, you could get 3 different perspectives, right? And everyone believes that they're correct. And as one person sitting there, me personally, I get overstimulated. And that in itself would just make me spiral even more into whatever emotion I'm feeling at the time. So I definitely would not recommend anyone to go to social media to express what they're feeling as a first choice, as Rick was saying. So I agree with that opinion as well.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what are some healthy ways to express emotion, especially as young up and coming Black men, right? There's been a narrative that young Black men are aggressive, maybe dismissive, right? And that could also just be from one bad apple that I shouldn't say bad apple, but one experience, that people used to explain and to describe everybody else, which isn't really fair, right? It's a stereotype, right? And what are some healthy ways that we can learn to express our emotions and just be comfortable and learn to be free with being emotional, right? Because it's necessary to be emotional. We just need to learn how to be emotional, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say there's really no one shoe fit all approach, especially when it's interesting because whenever I do meet clients for the first time, they would usually ask what I would like to learn, some skills and some techniques on how to, for example, manage my emotions. And of course, techniques, skills, that's all important. However, in order to really know what skill and technique to use, you do truly need to know yourself first and what really, really works for you, what you truly believe will work for you. Because what would work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. So first, I always tell clients, first really get to know yourself. And usually that happens during sessions, asking particular questions, getting to know the client. And then from there, we lay out, all right, what do you think about this technique or this skill? Trying it out and seeing if it fits. If it does, great. If not, all right, let's revisit other, techniques that may help, that you can practice. I would say one that tends to work for the most part is just time out, right? So just time to yourself, communicating to that. So for example, let's say you're in an argument with somebody, you're really, really upset. Just communicating to that individual, you know what, I need time alone, space alone, because I'm very, very activated in the moment and it's hard for me to process this conversation, control my emotions because I'm really, really angry. So I need some time to myself. So I would say that's one way of managing your emotions in a healthy way. A second one would be writing, journaling. I know for some people that definitely helps in being able to express yourself, especially if verbalizing how you feel, if that's a challenge for you. Writing is one way to express your emotions, seeing it on paper, putting words to the emotions that you're feeling. That makes it hard for you, which may make it hard for you to verbalize. And it also gives you time to really sit down and process how you're truly feeling, whether at that moment or even in the current moment, right? So I'd say journaling. You two mentioned it, just going outside to the gym, for example. If there's a nearby gym, going to the gym, working out, listening to music, especially just releasing all that emotion that's been in your body. Just releasing it with physical activity definitely helps. And again, talking to somebody that you really trust, and having them hopefully just listen to you. Because sometimes whenever we talk to our friends, they usually want to throw solutions at us, but at times you just want someone to just listen. So having a friend or someone that you're close with, that you believe you can trust, and they're going to simply just listen, is another way to really manage your emotions. So yeah, that's just to name a couple.
So you've given us like great examples on how to deal with emotions. Obviously, writing in a journal and taking your time and processing what you're feeling in the moment are great ways. Would you say that if you were to go to the gym or, I don't know, play basketball or try to like distract yourself from your emotions, would you say that's kind of avoidance in a sense? Like, would those emotions come back up?
Yeah, and in a way, especially initially, it can be seen as avoiding. This is why, especially with conflict, for example, one of the resolutions that I usually share with people is, for example, a conflict comes up, you need space, and in that moment, while you're expressing that you need space, letting that individual know that we are going to revisit this conversation because it does need to be discussed and a solution needs to be had. So communicating that to, whether it's a friend, partner, sibling, is very, very important. That way they know that, all right, one, this conversation is going to be revisited, and two, my feelings and emotions also matter, to where it's going to be revisited. And yeah, so, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's avoidance, because in a way too, you're also still managing / dealing with those emotions even in that current state, whether you're in the gym, whether you're walking, riding. So in a way, the emotions are still there, but you're now at a place where you're able to get to know the emotions. Because sometimes, especially within therapy, you sometimes learn that people, because they've been avoiding their emotions for so long, they don't know how to sit with their emotions, and it's at times healthy for the most part. It actually is healthy to sit with your emotions, because you're releasing the anger, the hurt that you've been holding for so long, right? When it comes to tears, for example, whenever we cry, we're releasing stress hormones. And studies have shown that in the tears there's cortisol in the tears.
Wow.
Which, yeah, and that's pretty much, so yeah, so it's important. It's really, really important to release all that. And yeah, and let it go, because as I was saying before, stress definitely impacts not only our mental health but also our physical health, and they're so interconnected that we sometimes don't realize that, and it can lead to short-term issues, whether it's remembering things, so like memory can be affected, worrying a lot at times, that's another one that can be impacted, and then it can lead to like longer chronic issues, right? Whether it's depression, anxiety, heart issues, sleep issues. So it's definitely important to release those emotions, and it's your way to also get to really know yourself and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And I went on a tangent there, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a good tangent, very informational one. And I would really say, like, I really liked what you talked about when you said we have to get to know ourselves to process our emotions and to know how to deal with ourselves, because it's really hard to sit there and look at yourself in a mirror and say, this is who I am, this is what I can take, this is what I can't take. By doing so, you're becoming a person of principle, you're becoming a person who knows their humanity. And you talked about that threshold of tolerance. To actually say that I can't take this also takes some humility, right? Because yes, it can look like avoidance in the moment, because you're running away from the situation. People could say that, but you're also putting yourself first, and you're putting that other person first. And when you talked about the necessary communication, when you say you're taking a break from whatever situation it is, it just shows that you're growing as a person, to be able to say that oh, I can't do this right now, but we're gonna come back to this later. And to set that up, you're just only building yourself up at that point, right? So if we start to look at things from that perspective, it would also be great, because having all that energy inside of you, as you're talking about, you made some really good points there. The consequences are worth it. And just to know that crying releases cortisol. Like, they always say men shouldn't cry, right? And it just goes to show, how stressed we are at times. Maybe we need to cry, a bit more. Maybe we need to just be free a bit more. And yeah, it's been great, honestly, having this conversation with you about emotions. And I feel like we touched on a lot of practical tips too, just being able to communicate, putting yourself first, and honestly just diffusing the situation. If you're always feeling excited, let's just say you're angry, let's just say you're sad, let's just say someone just broke your heart, your girl cheated on you, your girl dumped you, or you failed your test, what do you do in that moment? We talked about just leaving the situation, go do something you like to do, go have fun, watch a movie. It's not wrong, it's just taking care of yourself. You are human at the end of the day, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever you identify as, you are a human being, and you need to put yourself first. And with all that being said, we're getting close to the end of our show. So Rick and JJ, what is like one thing? I would ask you guys for a book, but today I'm going to ask you guys for one piece of advice you would like to give to our young and upcoming audience.
I guess I'm going first. I would say, again, just really giving yourself, because sometimes we're hard on ourselves, especially when it comes to our emotions, and just giving yourself grace, because it is a skill, and it can take a while to really, really learn the skill of being able to regulate your emotions. So if there are moments during the day where you're realizing, hey, you know what, I was able to regulate my emotions, that's a step, right? So just giving yourself that grace, because sometimes we tend to be hard on ourselves, and just remember that your brain is still developing. They say our brain doesn't fully stop developing until you're 25.
Yeah.
And and a big part of that is because the prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, is still developing, and that part is in charge of being able to reason, make logical decisions, being able to control your emotions. So you're still learning, you're still growing. So just giving yourself, grace, and know that, and believe that you'll eventually be at a place where you can regulate and control your emotions.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Mine's a little controversial in a sense. I would say if you need to talk to someone, and try not to overthink on what their response might be and what the response is, whether it's good or bad. If it's negative, try not to have that impact you so much, just because you've done all you can. You've voiced your emotions. Just I would say try not to let whatever they say back to you, if it's negative, to get you down too much.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Just before we end, for those listening who want to get into what you want to do, what field did you how did you start this? Whether that being school, what did you study or?
So my background is in social work. It was called Ryerson at the time, but now it's called TMU, Toronto Metropolitan University. So I have my bachelor's degree in social work. And during that time, I was figuring out, okay, if I do continue with my master's, what field do I want to go into? And I figured, why not therapy? I do enjoy talking to people, getting to know people, helping people, and therapy just made sense. It's all pretty much connected. So once I was in my master's program, I was a part of an agency where I did my placement, and I learned a lot about what it meant to be a therapist. So I'd say that's pretty much how I initially started in the therapy world, and yeah, I've been a therapist ever since 2019.
And for those looking for a therapy session, especially young Black males, how do they reach you? Where should they go?
Yes, so they can reach me two ways. Can I give my
go ahead.
Work number?
Put all your handles.
Yeah, plug it in.
Yeah, so my work number is 437-410-4018. So that's my work number. So you can always text me. Also by Gmail. So my Gmail is ACHEAM23@gmail.com. And another one, the third one would be the Healing Collective. So I'm a part of a collective where if you're looking for therapists, you'll find my information on that website. So you can go there and read a bit more about me. And yeah, that's another way you can also get a hold of me too. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. We'll be sure to put all those handles and your phone number below this podcast upload too, so everyone can get to it when they need to. And as you guys were saying, this is the wrap up and we're at the end. But before we do, I just want to say therapy does make sense, as Rick was saying. But I also want to put it out there that to have a therapeutic conversation, you just need to find a safe space, right? So I can only encourage you guys to find people that you can be vulnerable around. Find people who you can just be yourself, be free around. Because you learn about yourself when you're your free self. You learn about what you like and what you don't like when you're just being your true self. So find that safe space and just be emotional. That's what my last piece of advice. And with that being said, we're at the end of our podcast. Rick, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing all that knowledge and information. And I hope that some of the youth will definitely reach out to you and find their safe space with you, I should say. Yeah.
For sure. Definitely. And yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This was great way to get to know you two a bit, be a part of the podcast, and yeah, and I was grateful for being a part of it, for sure.
All right, until next week, guys.